Hi everyone, my name is William Sayer, the Customer Enablement Lead here at Bolt. We've got a premium customer workshop for you today, so let's dive right into it. We'll be going over how to streamline operations by building a custom internal scheduling tool. Now, whether you're in an organization, you're in a team, or you're just a solopreneur or founder, no worries. This can apply to you because we're going to be learning a whole variety of different skills along the way. Let's quickly look over the agenda. Here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, we're going to compose a PRD, a project requirement document with a focus on business rules. We have certain business requirements in an organization, or maybe there are brand guidelines that you want to adhere to, or there are certain things that you must adhere to within your app. We're going to put a focus on them. And this will make sense as we actually start to get building. We're building this like engineer scheduling tool where our business, we always want 2 engineers on call at all times. So it's a good way to schedule certain engineers for certain times. And we'll be building a custom tool for that. Now, we'll set the prompt off and we'll set the build. We'll also be looking into Shadcn, why and how to use it as a design library. We'll also add and use the custom Shadcn connector. So you may have heard about our MCPs or our connectors that we've launched recently. There are pre-configured through OAuth connectors, but you can also add your own custom connector. And we'll be going over the power of these and really how they enable your build. After that, we'll look at the magic of refactoring. I'll show you a quick clip of a really talented builder, and we'll look over what refactoring is and basically how you can use that within your project. And then we're going to quickly look at unit tests and use our Vitest and look at some practical examples of how you can use unit tests within your app. Then if we've got time, we'll do some final touches using image generation, a new feature that we've rolled out recently. With that, it's almost time for us to jump right in. Again, we tried this new format last week where we actually opened up the floor to you, our participants, at the end to present your project. So if we've got time at the end of this workshop, what we'll do is we'll add a link and we'll choose 1, 2, 3 different participants where you can spend a few minutes presenting what you've built in Bolt. And it can be really exciting to see what others are working on, use them for a little bit of inspiration. So hopefully we'll have time to get to that afterwards. Okay, so to kick everything off, let's have a look at the project requirement document, and we'll just start the build, and then we can start going through some of this theory a little bit. So here's our prompt, our engineer scheduling prompt. Basically, we'll quickly go over this so you understand. Look, I've structured it a little bit, and then we'll just bring it directly into Bolt. Build an internal engineer scheduling tool to help administrators schedule engineers for on-call shifts each week. The tool should have a sidebar on the left with 3 pages, a dashboard to display the total number of shifts, etc. I've also said plus other important metrics you may find helpful. So notice I've actually left this to the imagination of the agent rather than getting too specific. There's a schedule page showing Monday to Friday with AM and PM shifts, allowing us to assign 2 engineers per shift, 4 shifts a day, 20 a week, include easy navigation between weeks. Then an engineers page to show all the engineers in the system, include both senior and junior engineers, seed the database with 12 engineers. Now, here are our important business rules. Here we go. Yep. So important business rules. 1, it is essential that at least 1 senior engineer is scheduled at some point each day. They could do a morning shift or an evening shift, or have a senior engineer X in the morning and senior engineer Y in the PM also works, as long as there's 1 during the day at some point. So that's 1 important business rule that maybe you've been told by your manager or your organization just needs to support that. We're gonna make that very clear in this prompt. The second one is an engineer should never work both the AM and PM shifts, only 1 shift per day. And then an engineer should not be scheduled for more than 4 shifts per week. So these are our 3 essential business goals, and we're going to add them, and we've made them really clear by structuring our initial prompt. Like now with the UI, please draw inspiration from the screenshot attached regarding color scheme. So let's attach a screenshot to this, and it'll use that to draw in inspiration for the color scheme. Please use unique yet professional looking fonts and use Shadcn components where possible. I have enabled a connector, and we'll touch exactly on what that means in a second. Also, we've added this kind of memory feature, and memory is like a great way by creating these markdown files, which is simply just a human readable, but also agent readable text file. That it's a great way that you can add information about your code base within your repository or the code in general. Keep that in the root of the project. So you don't need to put it in any folders. You can if you want to structure it. And basically it could be like outlining your design system, or in this case, we're going to be adding the rules. We'll be adding a project outline. So add a project outline markdown file to the project root, outlining important details to remember about this project. Don't be too specific on details which may change over time, such as the amount of pages in the sidebar. As we build out new features and we're clearing the context of our agent as we go, it's important for us to maintain some sort of like overarching knowledge of the code base. And so that's a great way to do so by using these markdown files. We'll also add a rules markdown file, and I'll show you these in the code base once we get to it, which documents the important business rules mentioned above. And then we're also going to ask it to improve the Bolt system prompt so it's more suited to what we have outlined in this PRD. Make reference to both of these files above in the Bolt system prompt. Whenever we start a new project, so here we are, whenever we build a new project, it uses a typical sort of like project knowledge file, but we're actually asking the agent to modify this itself. So we'll see how that works as well. So with all of that said, let's kick things off. What I'm going to do is I'll copy all of this. So I'll grab task going down. We're going to copy it. And here we go. We're going to paste this prompt in. And let's actually do this twice. I want to show you the power of planning. I've got two concurrent tabs. I'm going to paste the exact same prompt into both of them. This first one, simply just going to send it off, and we're going to build it. We're going to let it do its thing. This second one, let's enhance the prompt. So this looks over the prompt. It basically restructures it in a way that is more readable for the agent. It makes it the agent. Once you have structured prompts in there, the agent can just better address the task at hand. So notice that it's structuring everything out for us, basically rewriting the prompt, but keeping all of the core details. And what I'm also going to do is I'll show you these connectors in case you haven't seen them already. By default, when I manage my connectors, when I added a connector, I made sure that the Shadcn is on by default and the others are off. Now we'll touch on that in a second, but I'm just double checking that's all good and that's the way we want it to be. And then we're also, once we've enhanced this, we're going to plan it out as well. So we're going to see if it has any clarifying questions for us, and we're going to build that. So there we go. To recap, we've got two concurrent builds with the same initial prompt. We've got this one here, which we didn't enhance and we didn't put it in plant mode. And then we've got our second one, which I jumped over. I just realized in the broadcast, you probably can't see my tabs. So what I might do for the sake of simplicity is let me change that. What I'll do is let me just change how I'm sharing my screen so you can see my tabs. Hopefully it makes it a little bit clearer for you guys. Here we go. Now we should have tabs. So yeah, going over what I was saying, we've got this second tab here, which is not being enhanced and hasn't been planned. We're building that out. And then also our third tab here is where we've enhanced the prompt and we're also planning it. And you'll get to see a comparison of how that makes a difference on the final product. Okay, while that's working, let's jump back into our slideshow. So here we go. We've gone over our agenda. Now, our business rules, these are the three business rules that we just covered. These are really important. And this These may not apply to your project. I doubt they will, but there is a chance that there will be other business rules that you may want to consider and that are important for you. So an example of that is maybe you're doing like a checkout site, or it's it's similar to Shopify where people can come in like an e-commerce store, and maybe you want to implement sales, or maybe you're not allowing discounts to stack on top of each other. And these are just examples of what you may want to classify as like business rules within your app. It's good to think about these and then save them as a markdown file so that they're always there for the agent to reference. Now, let's touch on Shadcn. So some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not. It's basically a modern approach to UI component ownership. So it's not a traditional component library, it's a code distribution system. Now, this may sound a bit complex, but bear with me here, you'll see it in practice. So you copy beautifully designed component source code directly into your project. It's built on Radix UI primitives for keyboard navigation and accessibility. So you can basically use tab to jump through the site, and it's just better for these accessibility considerations. It's styled with Tailwind. So if you're not familiar with Tailwind, I'll show you that in the code in a sec. And so that's basically for rapid changes that the agent can make to the components themselves. The components live in your code base, so there's no module dependencies. There's no risk of breaking changes from upstream if the packages changes, because you're actually bringing these components directly into the code base. And this is trusted by organizations or companies like OpenAI, Sonos, Adobe, and thousands of other production apps. So this is really ready for production at scale. With that, Shadcn has its own MCP, and it's very easy to connect. So basically, there are 4 fields that you want to be adding when you're adding this connector into your site. For those of you who aren't familiar with how connectors work, it's something that we've just rolled out recently. If you come down here to connectors, you open up, notice that we can connect to a variety of these different sources. So for example, here I've connected my Linear, my GitHub, whatever. And basically this uses Anthropic's model context protocol to help your agent draw in context from these sources. For example, GitHub, let's say I've got another code base or another repository that's in my GitHub, and I want to pull a feature or a component from that other project directly into this project. Because it's saying that I've connected to my GitHub, I can simply come down here while I'm prompting, go into connectors. I can turn this GitHub connector on and say, look into this certain repository, please find a specific component. And so what the agent will be able to do is, using that connection, is it can actually go in and draw that data out, or look through all of that data in that repository and then bring that as context into the chat here, and then use that in your project. You can do the same with Notion documents. Say you've got a big Notion database, you can look through that, bring that in, and then use it as context for the agent. So basically, when we're connecting this Shadcn UI MCP, it's basically enabling us to all of these like components that it has within Shadcn. So whether it's like a drop down or like a date picker, all of these little custom components, which are built with accessibility first and performance in mind, it'll be able to bring these components in, and it'll know exactly which ones to reference. Okay, so notice that when you do have connectors enabled, because it will look into these connections and often draw in data and use that as context, it can make your token consumption go up. So to prevent that, I like to toggle them off unless I'm actually using them. So if we want to use Linear, for example, our task tracking app, we can turn that on, ask about a specific task, say what is in my backlog, and it might pull in a few tasks. And then once we're done with that, we can turn it off again. Great. So this first project is almost finished building. Let's have a look at our second one. So this, it looks like it's created a plan and it's asking us our clarifying questions. So let's just finish these off. It's asking us for the 12 seed engineers, do you have specific names or personas in mind? I'll just say, just generate realistic names. Use 5 senior engineers and 7 juniors. Great. 2, should schedule changes be immediately persisted to the Bolt database on every assignment row, or would you prefer a save button for workflow where this makes multiple changes? Please instantly save. Oops. Go, we'll fix that. 3. Do we have any questions so far? I'm sure Eric is doing a good job answering them in the chat. Okay, 3. So for the database's shift history across all weeks, should this show data from actual past weeks stored in the database, or is it sufficient to focus on current week? Yes, show past weeks too. However, they should not be editable. Great. Okay, so we'll turn off plan mode. We'll make sure that our connectors are all set up. Good. We've got the Shadcn UI. And you know what I just realized? We didn't include a screenshot of what we were going to use for the color theme. So let's attach a file here in desktop. I've got quite the look of this dashboard. We're going to open that one. And now with that in there, let's say I've attached a screenshot of a dashboard. Please use its color palette as guidance in this dashboard. Okay, great. So with that, we've turned it off plan mode and we'll send it off. Cool. So here we go. This is our first one, all complete. It looks like it's finished building. We've got our dashboard page. We've got our engineers in there. Let's look at our schedule. Okay, this is looking pretty good. It looks like it's functional. We can change between the weeks. Let's see, in here we can assign engineers. So Aisha, we're going to click on that. Notice it's saying no senior engineer included. Let's click on another one, James O'Brien. It does have these, it looks like it's showing junior and senior. So here's a little senior badge next to them. So we'll click on that. There we go, senior coverage met. Great. Now let's also look in our code base. And yes, it's done a good job including the project outline. So it's basically described the purpose of the app. It's got the engineers table, shifts table. It's got a sidebar. It's mentioned how the design should work and key file. So it's good to have a file like this. So whenever we clear the context, the agent can really easily regain understanding of the project rather than having to look through all of the code to comprehend it. It's also added the rules document. So here we go. Yep, it's got rules, daily senior coverage, and this is great. So it's really good that it's got these rules as well. And now if we're going to look in our project knowledge, have a look at this. This is actually different. If you ever come in and you look at your project knowledge from when you've started a site from scratch, it'll have a generic piece of text that we use as your customizable system prompt. But notice it's actually been able to come in and actually change this. So it says use Shadcn UI components, yada, yada, yada. It refers to both of these markdown documents. And so the beauty of this project knowledge is the agent will read this every single time you prompt it. It'll always know to make reference to the rules document if it's changing any of these business rules. So it's just a great way for it to keep this as persistent knowledge for the agent. Great, that's working. That's all good. Let's see where we are with the other one. Great, so that's building, and then we'll be able to compare and see how they compare against each other. Now, let's jump back into our slideshow. Here we go. Preview. Whoops. Here we go. Present. So where were we? Great. So we've gone over Shadcn. This is how to connect a Shadcn, basically the custom MCP. So because I've already set it up, I didn't need to demonstrate this to you. However, if you are wanting to do this yourself, you come into connectors and you click on custom MCP. You basically bring in the name from here. So we've got, oops, here we go. So you just write Shadcn/UI. So Shadcn/UI. We go down here, we give it the URL. So it's git-mcp.io Shadcn. So you basically just write that out, HTTPS, dot git, I think it was git-mcp, git-mcp io Shadcn UI. shadcn.io/mcp/UI. Did I say, oh no, what's this was shadcn/UI. So that already exists because I've already saved it in here, but basically you won't get that error message. Transport type is SSE and authentication none. And then you just click add MCP and that basically adds it, and you'll see it appear down here. Now, some of you who probably haven't used Shadcn before, and maybe it wasn't making a huge amount of sense, notice that when we go into our source folder and we look into components, we now have this, it's created this UI folder. And in here, it's got like an accordion file. It's got an alert dialog, alert, aspect ratio, avatar, badge, breadcrumb, button, calendar. All of these UI elements or components as well, carousel, for example, checkbox, basically every time it wants to implement one of these, instead of writing it from scratch, it uses what has already been created by Shadcn. So it's basically been able to pull that in, and it's created these components using the Shadcn MCP. And now this has already been written, it's been tested, it's been validated, as I said, trusted by thousands of production code bases. So you can really be sure that by using something like Shadcn, whenever you're, for example, here in the schedule, if you're coming here and you press like tab, it means that these buttons, if you just use the agent to create some of these buttons, sometimes it may make them like selectable by using keyboard navigation, sometimes not. Whereas when you use something like Shadcn, it always responds to these responsiveness guidelines, accessibility, performance, etc. Great. And then as you build with it, as you build out more and more pages, it makes sure to reference the same component each time. Okay, I think that's Shadcn covered. Let's, you know what, I keep losing this, so I'm going to have to go to our workshops site. Actually, I'll keep doing it from here. Here we go. So slides, present, where were we? Okay, so there's our Shadcn custom connector. We learned how to do that. Now, this is almost done. Now we're going a little bit ahead of time with this, but this will all make sense once we get to it. So the second thing to touch on is basically refactoring your code. So refactoring is the process of restructuring your existing code without changing how it's used. So you're not adding any more buttons. You're not changing any of the functionality whatsoever. You're basically rewiring it and restructuring it so that it's like more efficient and more capable. Think about refactoring like you're renovating a house. So you're not adding any new rooms or changing the address, but you're rewiring the electrical, or you're fixing the plumbing and making the layout more logical so everything works better. So common refactoring activities include renaming variables to be cleaner or clearer, breaking large functions into smaller ones, removing duplicated code, and simplifying complex logic. So 3 example common refactors are bloated components. So a single React component can be 500 plus lines, and it's doing everything, fetching the data, handling the state, rendering. And this may not make sense to some of the people who aren't so technical. You don't really need to worry about too much. Basically asking the agent to refactor for you can handle this itself. So it may do things like break the component into smaller, more focused parts for faster load, easier debug. Repeated API calls is another one. So, the same data being fetched in multiple places instead of just being fetched once and shared through context or properties. This wastes network requests and creates inconsistency. So this is another example of how refactoring can optimize this. And copy-pasted logic. So using the same validation logic for formatting a function or error handling. Instead of writing that so many different times in your code base, you can just write it once and basically have it to remember to apply to all of those 5 places. Don't just hear it from me. Let's hear it from Peter Steinberger. He's the creator of OpenClaw. I'm sure some of you have probably heard of OpenClaw. It's been taking GitHub and the world of X by storm over the last few months. And he was on the Lex Friedman podcast. So I'll show you a quick clip from him where he talks about the power of refactoring in a second. Let's see where this is at. Okay, so we've run into this error. It seemed like the agent stopped. let's please try again. So what I'll do is I'll retry it. I have a feeling that because maybe I added the image in later than I should have, that's probably, actually, here we go. So it looks like it's built out the site. Maybe it didn't fully comprehend this second prompt and it looks like it's thinking again, but I just press retry and it looks like it's been able to render the app. Let's just see what the agent says when it's thinking. So it goes, I noticed several files were modified. Okay, so it's going to go have a look and fix those, but it did create the build, and let's quickly have a look through it. So notice this is the one where we used enhanced prompts and we also used plan mode. So let's basically just compare the pair. We also added our screenshot, so it used that green theme, but it looks like as I scroll through all of these shifts per engineers, it's giving this nice little component that pops up, basically showing who the engineers are. I haven't populated any data yet, so it's not showing anything. But in general, when you enhance the prompt and go via plan mode, it just makes everything a little bit more interactive. It thinks it through a little bit better. Notice how this dashboard is, we'll add a little bit, we'll add some data into it. So let's assign an engineer in here. Just finished that. Yep, here we go in schedule. So let's assign an engineer. So it looks like we've got our senior engineers and our junior engineers. This is a good example of basically how Shadcn has implemented a dropdown. You see how this is really nice and clean. The way when I click assign, notice how, look at this component block. Look at how it like fades in and then it grows and fades in. And when I click it, it shrinks and fades out. So that animation, for example, will have been written by Shadcn. And then whenever we can call that component, it makes sure to use that same animation on every single time we pull out a dropdown like this. So that's just one of the benefits of using a design system. So here we go. Let's assign. So notice, look, we've got this kind of little toast popping down as well. Let's add another engineer. We've got another toast, and look at how these toasts stack. And I can even, when I hover them, it shows all of them. So if I assign a bunch of different people, it should have, there we go. So it basically shows all of the recent toasts. It's likely that this is a Shadcn component, but notice that if we come back into here and we schedule and we assign somebody, we're not getting any toast components here within the one where we didn't plan. So that's a really good example of, by using this plan mode, it basically just thinks of these little nuanced details and it adds it to your site automatically. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. Let's quickly look in the code base. We can see it's added the project outline, it's added the rules, which is looking good. Now, because let's look at our project knowledge. Here we go. It's added what we wanted in here. It's got the business rules as well. Now, notice it starts with this. This is on-call and internal engineering on-call scheduling tool. So if you want to find that system prompt, you can actually come into the Bolt folder here. And then if you come down to prompt, basically this is the exact same prompt here. So anything you change here in the code base, it'll automatically update here in the project knowledge. And so by having it here in the code base, basically the agent has self-awareness and it can understand its own system prompt, which is really useful. Okay, so there we go. We've got all of that and it looks like it's working. Let's just check to see how some of these business rules work. So we've got a senior engineer here. Let's add a junior engineer, another junior engineer. And notice it's saying Wednesday has no senior engineer assigned. So it's coded some of this logic in here. And then we've got Lucas as well. So it's showing us, okay, Wednesday we have no senior engineer assigned. So it's really good that it's been able to identify, it's translated those business rules into, now it's showing a warning. Now, what if we add Carlos in here? And we're now going to try and put Carlos on every single day of the week. Now violating another one of our business rules. So we're on 4. And now what if we assign to 5? Look, it's actually made Carlos unselectable. It's got a little warning next to it. So I can't actually select Carlos. It's fully preventing me. Fatima also looks like has been populated. So basically it's now applied these business rules into the logic of this app. Great, that's what we're looking for, which is really good. Now, to look at refactoring, if we want to refactor it, an example of the prompt that you can use is something like this. Think about the process of refactoring this code base and help me find the most impactful refactors we could implement to improve performance, speed, and reliability. So what I'll do is I'll come back into here. Let's find this text. And I'm just going to copy this over, come back into our prompt. And so now let's think about the process of refactoring the code base. We're going to plan it out and we're going to send that off. Coming back to our presentation, let's not jump over what Peter Steinberger said. Here, I've loaded a little clip for him. So again, he's the creator of OpenClaw, and this is what he has to say about refactoring. This okay? I just hearing that you guys aren't having any audio. Really sorry about that, guys. I guess you can read the transcript at the bottom for now. I hope that's useful. I'll jump back just to the important part. Basically, what he says is almost every time he merges a pull request, he asks the agent, what can I refactor? Doing it. This guy's incredible scenes, AI integration, and he's refactoring pretty much every time he builds out a feature or something like that. So otherwise, he basically goes on to say that it'll just end up in a whole amount of kind of AI slop. And if you every checkpoint along the way, if you're asking your code to kind of refactor and basically understand how it can improve the efficiency of the code, then that's a really great way that it won't just end up this sprawling mess of AI generated code. It'll actually all kind of reference each other. So we're looking over the code base now, and we're going to identify what are some of the most impactful refactors. So it's looking over that, and we'll let it do its thing. Great. Now look at this dashboard. You can see how it's like nice and interactive. It's actually responding, and it's based on the data that we've populated in the schedule. It's now adding this to our dashboard here. All these like little tags and the way this row has been set up is likely Shadcn as well. Now, okay, so while it's working on refactoring, let's jump back into our PowerPoint. Here's the prompt that you can use. I'd suggest in plan mode first. Once it's explain that to you, then you can come back in and build it out. Now, let's touch on a final thing that I want to get over in this workshop is something called unit testing. So this basically helps catch the bugs before your users do. And it can get a little bit confusing. It can be a fairly technical side of things. However, the agent has a really good understanding of this, and it can do it really well for you. It's, again, a beauty of not needing to understand everything that the agent does, but just understand the architecture and what it's implementing. So I can see we've got a question from Joe. Would Shadcn need to be connected to the project from the beginning, or can it be connected at a later point? Yeah, really good question. You can connect it at a later point, which is fine. I assume you probably already got a project that you've built out, and in which case, when you are connecting it, I'd suggest maybe just duplicating the project first and doing a test and seeing how that works. But it shouldn't be a problem. Basically, the process that the agent will go through in connecting Shadcn is it will, rather than asking to do it for your entire project at once, that is basically asking it to look through all of your code files and figuring out where it can replace certain components with Shadcn. That's a big ask, and it's going to use up a lot of context doing that all at once, and it's likely to make mistakes along the way. So if you are to implement it into your current project, I'd recommend doing it maybe a few pages at a time. So say you've got a landing page, connect MCP to Shadcn, and then basically ask it, just start really simple and start off with one page and say, please look over this specific page determine where Shadcn components can be implemented, replacing some of my existing components, and put that in plan mode. It'll come back, it'll figure out which Shadcn components it wants to put in to your code base and explain that outline. Then I'd go ahead and I'd build that and I'd see how that works within that page. If you're happy with that, move on to another page. And then if you've got work your way through your project, you might be able to do a few pages at a time. But if you've got a really big project, don't try and do the whole thing at once. I hope that helps. Great. Okay, so on to unit testing. So basically unit testing, because Bolt uses Vite under the hood, which means I think quickly in French, it's just basically a really quick way to compile all your code together. Vite actually has its own testing that is native, that it's really easy to connect. So it's a fast unit testing framework, purpose-built for Vite projects, inspired by Jest with a compatible API. So it's easy to learn, but you don't need to learn it. The agent does. Zero configuration setup that it reuses your existing Vite config TypeScript file, and it's native TypeScript and JavaScript support out of the box. So Vitest is a really great one to use. What are unit tests and why do they matter? So basically, a unit test verifies that a small isolated piece of code behaves as expected. So it'll catch regressions early, so bugs are found before they reach production. Living documentation, tests describe exactly what your code should do. Confident refactoring, so it will change code knowing tests will catch before the breakage, and it'll have fast feedback loops. So you can run hundreds of tests in seconds during development. Now, again, this may sound technical, but I'll walk you through the process of actually using an agent to implement this. So a single function, so a React component or utility helper is basically one unit or one test. And it's different from integration tests, which wires multiple units container, and end-to-end tests for full user flows. So this is what it looks like in action, and I'll actually show it to you in our project. It looks like this has just finished the plan for the refactoring, and let's see what it's found. So we'll come up to the start. It says plan, high impact refactors for performance, speed, and reliability. Here are the most impactful refactors ordered from highest impact to lowest. Reliability, add error boundaries, critical. So currently 0 error boundaries exist anywhere in the app. Any runtime error, a failed Bolt database fetch, a chart rendering issue, or an unexpected null causes the entire application to go white with no recovery path. So create a reusable error boundary component. So it just creates this component once, maybe 100 lines of code or whatnot, and then it can basically use that and reference that everywhere. That's one of the beauties of how React works. Wrap the entire app in a root level error boundary in app. Add page level error boundaries. Great. So reliability. So we're also going to add Bolt database runtime subscriptions. Critical. So basically the app fetches data once on mount and never updates. In multi-user scheduling tool, this means 2 users editing the same week will override each other silently, and open tabs show stale data. This is something can fix as well. And sometimes it can actually get quite complicated here and really consider some of these edge cases. Like, for example, when you're building out a new app, this edge case of thinking about, okay, what if 2 viewers are viewing the app at the same time and one person changes it, will the other person see that? And that's like a good example of something. There's usually dozens of these, potentially hundreds, that you may not think through, where prompting the agent like this, it can really help you discover. So performance. So we're going to go ahead. Let's just see how much time we have. We've got about 15 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bypass this, because doing something like this will probably take about 10 minutes or so. But what I wanted to show you is basically you getting the gist of how these refactors work. Often when you're refactoring your like the entire project, like what it's doing now, it'll be quite a lengthy process, but it'll reach an optimization state. And then as you add on a new feature, next time you want to refactor, basically all we'll have to do is refactor that new feature into the rest of the code base. It doesn't become as difficult as this, or it probably won't have this many processes once you're adding just incremental features. Okay, let's come back into if we're going to look at our unit tests. And so here we go. So here's a prompt that we're going to use for our unit testing. So simply ask in plan mode, how could this project benefit from adding Vitest for testing? Brainstorm tests we could add and evaluate to find the most useful ones. So let's just copy that prompt. Here we go. Copy that out. And we'll jump in here. Oh, actually, we'll jump into this one. But you know what? I kind of want to demonstrate this. So what we'll do is we'll implement in this project, we'll implement the refactoring. And then in this project, what we can do is we're going to do the testing. So here we go. We'll put this in plan mode and we'll send this off. Great. So we've got on our first project here, the one that didn't have the enhanced mode, the enhanced prompt, or the planning. That's where we're going to be doing adding these Vite testing. And then we're doing our refactoring in here. Something with refactoring, which I probably should have done before I sent this prompt off, is often you can ask your agent, how many lines of code is my code base? And it'll go through, it'll figure out how many lines of code it is. It'll give you an answer. Then do a refactor and then ask it again. And it'll often, sometimes it can reduce it by 30% or a good amount. Yeah. Refactoring, as if you haven't refactored yet and you've got a really large project, that can get a little bit risky because there's so many things that may want to change. So again, refine the scope and say, hey, look, I want to refactor my dashboard page, or I want to refactor my scheduling page, and basically start off doing it chunk by chunk. Okay, I think we're doing pretty good. So we've got this one, which is doing the refactoring. We've got this project, which is adding the tests. So these probably will take a few minutes or so to build out. Let's jump back in and have a look at our final finishing touches. So basically final touches with image generation. So basically we have enabled this new feature, which I'm really excited about. And just to demo it, I might start a third project. Please build a basic landing page for a graphic design agency. Great. So let's see, we've got our connectors. We can leave Shadcn on for this one. Then we're just going to build this out really simple. Please add a few images. So let's just super simple prompt. Maybe let's enhance it to help it a little bit. Great. So it's should be done in a second. There we go. Okay, build now. So that's our third project, which we'll get working. And I'll show you how image generation works in here. Okay, so we'll give that a second. Here we go. We've got our refactoring in here. This is our project where obviously we enhanced the prompt and we planned it out. But isn't it incredible how good some of these models are getting? This is Opus 4.6. And from this one initial prompt that we gave it, its business logic, etc., it's been able to add these interactive charts that actually respond to a database. So notice if we come in and let's jump over to the next week, it's been able to configure schedule properly. We can assign, so we'll add a senior engineer. Let's add some more engineers in here. And notice as we start to build this out, obviously it's got our toast notifications. We come into our dashboard and it's actually changing some of the data that we're seeing here. So we're seeing exactly who. Now, this could probably use a little bit of tweaking. It's not immediately comprehensive or, I guess, understandable, digestible, but it does a really good job. We've got our engineers as well. It's shown how many have been scheduled for this week and who's available. So literally from one prompt, I think the plan mode really helps a lot. It's been able to add all of these 3 pages with pretty much full functionality. So that's working out. Yep, almost done. Let's jump back into our landing page here. Okay, that's building. There we go. Let's have a look at our testing. Okay, here we go. Would you like me to also plan end-to-end tests using Playwright is similar for the full assignment workflow, or a unit test? Okay, yeah, I'll just say just unit tests with the test for now. Oops. 2, let's see, for the dashboard stats, priority 3, are you comfortable with small refactor? So there we go. It's actually asking us to refactor, to extract computation into a standalone function, or would you prefer testing? Yes, we'll ask it to do that. Thank you very much. And then 3, do you have target code coverage percentage in mind, or should you focus on, for the testing, let's just focus on making sure that the business rules are adhered to, these are outlined in the rules.md file. So there we go. So it's going to put testing in specifically for those business rules that we asked about. Okay, so now let's turn it off plan mode and we'll build that out. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can get all of this done. Okay, so that's building that out. Okay, 3 projects building at once. Yep, that's good. I'm pretty sure, let's just quickly have a look over our image generation. So with the image generation, here we go. So you can enable image generation in your personal settings, add-on features. I'll show you that in a sec. It's powered by the Gemini 3 Pro image model. Gemini 2.5 was Nano Banana, so this one's even better. Nano Banana 2, I believe. And the output is automatically converted to WebP for optimized web performance, so smaller file size for the images. The agent defaults to using placeholder images from pixels if image generation isn't enabled. So if you ask it to add maybe a blog, if you're making a blog site or something like that and wants to add images, it'll by default, it'll grab these open source images that it can use from pixels, bring that into the project. But if you enable image generation, then obviously you're generating your own. Note, sometimes the image formatting doesn't allow all images to be modified, but this is something that we're working on. So I'll show that to you in a sec. All right, so this just finished building out this very basic agency site. Here we go. We've got some images in here. Now, say we like this, but look, we want maybe, although in the hero section, we can see that there is like a very faded image in the background. Let's go about making our own image. So we'll come into our project settings. We'll slide down under personal settings in add-on features. This is where we can enable image generation. We can toggle that. So press save. If you want to learn more about it, there's a help article here. So now that we've turned image generation on, let's come back and prompt it. Please modify the hero section of the landing page so that it doesn't have an image which is in the background. And instead, I would like you to generate a new image which shows 2 people shaking hands, shows a high resolution, realistic photograph of, we'll just prompt a little bit better, shaking hands, and place this on the right of the hero text. Sorry, the hero heading. Okay, so we'll send this off now that we've enabled image generation. So there we go. Hopefully it'll get rid of that background and then add a new generated image on the right. Okay, let's jump back in here. So we've done some of our, it looks like it's finished doing its refactoring. So all 8 refactors are complete. Here's a summary of what was accomplished: readability improvements, performance improvements, bundle size reduction. So it removed 33 unused UI components, component files, and 20 unread NPM packages. So just to like double click on what this did, for example, so 33 unused UI component files. So what does it mean by that? Let's come into our code base. And when we look at our source in here, if we come into components and we look at our kind of UI, remember how we were talking about how Shadcn did a really good job of bringing these in using MCP? What it did is it probably brought in all of those components from Shadcn. However, with this refactoring, what it did is it realized, okay, we weren't referencing 33 of those, or 33 of them were unused, and there were some unused NPM packages as well. So basically what it's done is it's removed those from this UI folder, making the code base a lot smaller. However, now if we wanted to add new UI components, we'd probably want to use Shadcn MCP to bring those back in. So notice it's almost, by refactoring, it's cut down our code base for what we currently have. And while you're in the process of building out, let it build out, let it bring in these UI components from Shadcn. And then once you're happy with that feature and it's sort of happy to share, that's when you can do the refactor, because that's when it'll get rid of these unnecessary files just to make everything a little bit more efficient. Okay, let's jump back in here. Here we go. Okay, this was the image that it was able to generate. So it's done a pretty good job. Honestly, it looks like they've all got the right amount of fingers. The lighting looks good. It's done a pretty good job. The Gemini 3 Pro image generator really is quite good. So you can see just exactly how easy it is to generate these images and tell the agent exactly where to put them within your app. Now, if you want to modify an image, basically what you can do is do a similar sort of thing. So let's come down. We're going to click select. We're going to click on this. And notice when we select something, we can select a variety of different layers. Notice the image one is green. So we're going to select the image layer itself. Once we've selected that image layer, let's go ahead and say edit with AI. One of the beautiful things about Nano Banana, that why it took the AI world by storm, which is the image model that we're using here, the image generation model, is it can really accurately modify images without changing anything. So previously, before Nano Banana, if you said something like, let's change, you see how we've got those 3 boxes here on the page. Say you wanted to change something really specific about what the content is here. You can actually prompt that and Nano Banana will do a really good job of it. So for example, let's say these 3 boxes with the crosses through them, let's actually put doodles inside of them and see how well it works, just as a really specific example. Please modify the 3 boxes on the notepad which have crosses through them by removing the cross and placing a doodle inside of these squares instead. Okay, let's see how well this works. I hope I'm not talking Nano Banana up too much, but it usually does a really good job of these small little fine adjustments without changing the entire image. Great, so that's working. Now let's jump back in here. So here it says it's implemented this Vitest. And now you're probably wondering, like, how do we actually run this test and how does it work? And it's basically explained it in here. It's added some validation tests and schedule tests. And it's saying you can run the full suite by using npm test. So to do that, we don't type it into the agent here. We actually come over into the code base. Inside the code base, under the bottom bit here, notice we've got these 3 different options. We're going to click on terminal, and directly within terminal, this is where we're going to write npm test. And we're going to click this. I'm going to let it. Oh, okay. So it looks like it maybe fully hasn't installed properly. So I'll just take a screenshot of that. I'll put it in. I tried to test, but it seems like it's not properly installed. Please help me fix. Okay, we'll send that off. Actually, maybe it's here within Bolt that we need to write the test. No, I'm pretty sure it's in terminal. So where we can actually see these tests themselves is here in the source folder. If we come into, I think, tests, here we are. Oh, actually, lib, and then this test folder here. So if we can click that, we can see here are basically all the tests that it's written, and these are validation tests. So it's doing things where it's basically asking, like, is an engineer scheduled for more than 4 shifts in a week, or is there always a senior engineer? And it's basically running these tests under the hood. And the beauty of having tests like this set up is that if you come in to your front end and you messing around, you want to change the UI, and by changing how the look of this works, you're basically changing some of the architectural decisions under the hood without knowing. And now, for whatever reason, the agent has removed one of these important criterias, then basically by running the test, it's actually able to check all of these and making sure that they're still going to work under the hood. Okay, so that's fixed. Let's jump back in and we'll try it again. So terminal npm test. So here we go. It wants to install this. So we're going to, Press Y. Let's try this again. npm test Y. Okay, it's funny, the agent should have installed this package for us. So look, we can just, if the terminal freaks you out a little bit, you can again prompt it in. It seems like Vitest wasn't installed. Please install. Okay, there we go. Now, these unit tests are something that you can do more diving into. Feel free to jump into plan mode, ask your agent, how can you add them to your project, or where will they actually provide value? Okay, so having a little bit of a problem here. It should install it. The agent should install it itself. Okay, and I think we're just about on time. I hope we've all been getting something useful from this. If we have anybody who wants to share what they've been building in Bolts, what we'll do is we're going to share a link with you in the comments. So what I'll do is I'll just grab the link and we're going to pop this now into the comments. So you should see a link down the bottom there. Feel free, you're welcome to, no pressure, but if you do want to practice sharing your project with some guests, whoever joins this link, you'll have a minute or two to basically share your project, and I'll show you what you've been working on. Perhaps if you've just launched or you're close to launching, feel free to share your projects with us. So I'll give you a minute or two to just join the waiting room. And let's have a look back. So yeah, we've done our, let's have a look at this. Oh, it's actually asking us which approach would you prefer? Generate a new image. Okay, so let's try this again. So we'll select this, select image, and we're going to click edit with, that was the problem. So I just put it directly in the prompt box. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you press edit with AI. So again, we click select, we click the image, we make sure we choose the correct image layer, this green one here, and then we don't type it in the prompt box, we write edit with AI. So I'm going to copy what we said before and click edit with AI. And then this shows it shows the actual image. And here we go. So it'll generate an image, and now it's going to send that image off to Nano Banana or Gemini 3 Pro. Then it'll use that image, and here we go. We can actually see the generation and have a look at that. So we can slide, we can see the old image, and now we can see the new image. It's done a pretty good job. It hasn't done it perfectly. I could have been a little bit clearer when I was describing it. Notice it's added 4 doodles, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if we scroll back, those weren't there before. So that's like an example of how you can get really specific on small details that you want it to make. It can make lighting changes. It can remove objects from the background. It's really good. It can do a lot of things. So if we're happy with that, notice it'll show all the different variations. If we want to prompt it again, we can. So once you keep prompting, it'll come up with all these variations here. And then we just press use this image and it'll add it in here. Great. So I can see we've got Kevin in our waiting room. Kevin, I'll hand it over to you just in a short second. Let me finish off. Here we are with these tests. Let's see where we're at. What I'll do is I'll just reload this page. So hopefully it's finished with these tests. What we'll do is we'll come into code and we're going to test this out, see how well it works. npm Vitest. What it does this time. Unknown command Vitest. Oh, sorry. It's npm test. Here we go. My bad. I was using the wrong command. So it's actually failed some of these tests. So basically, okay. So perhaps what it's done is it hasn't implemented the test correctly in the first place. So what I would do in this case is basically I'd go over these. I'd bring them back into the agent and say, help me refine some of these tests so that they do work. And basically you should see all of these tests once they're configured properly to basically be running. Again, they're really useful if you've got multiple people working on your project and there's some really critical business information that you want to preserve. You want to make sure nobody changes that. That's where something like tests can be really useful. So probably just need to prompt it again, hopefully get it working, but you basically get the gist of the process of how to implement these. Okay, I know we've gone a little bit over time. Kevin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to you. Let's jump back into our speaker view. So here's Erica. We're going to add you to stage. Here's Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Great. I can hear you. Can everybody hear Kevin okay?
Absolutely.
Great.
So,
Okay. You
you
want to introduce yourself and say what you've been working on?
Of course. My name is Kevin Blackburn. I'm a CIO for Bellybind, which is a postpartum organization that actually helps women with their wraps after after delivery. And
Wow.
I've been working on this project for a while. I'm building a full CMS for this application. I'm going to share this with you guys. It's pretty extensive, so I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible. For the users, I wanted it to be like a game experience. So when they come in, they'll do an initial assessment. And when they do an assessment, they'll go through particular steps if they're pregnant, receiving from different states. And of course, when they go through the different states, they'll go through different steps. And of course, they can pick the delivery date that's needed. And once the delivery date is added, then you can add if they're experiencing any weight issues or if there was a surrogacy. Because what this does is it goes in after these are selected, it provides the type of products and or services that are going to be used for the client so they can actually purchase it. So anytime a person comes to Bellybind, they actually have to go through a process where, okay, what do I then buy for the particular services? So now they can actually purchase and check out. So let me do this. I'm going to sign out because there's a lot more to it after they see the recommendations once they purchase. But if they log in, I want to show you guys what it looks like on the client side. I created a couple of development accounts so I can bypass some things to save time. This isn't actually shown on the client side for the customer. So when they come in, the client comes in, they can book an appointment, they can see their actual journey, build a healing simulator, and that simulator basically goes through and they can see the results over time from different activities that are done as well. This breakdown timeline, that they actually have the ability to say, if I have completed a specific step that gives me certain points, then you can actually see the results of those steps as well. I isolated the different areas of progress. So if they did an assessment, they can go and actually look at the old assessment. They can see anything that's actually saved as well, and they can browse the marketplace. They can actually book their appointments. But each of the appointments for the clients, they are going to have to get assigned the appointment first. So let me show you the specialist side. I'm trying to move through this quickly enough so you can see, because the admin portion is so fun. There's also a game aspect of this as well.
Cool.
So let me log out really quick for 1 second. As an admin, I built a lot of different backend tools to see what's actually happening. So I have system alerts and things like that. There are certain things that is pending. So if I have a specialist that's actually pending their application review, they can go through a background check, the things are verified. I can also reset the application as well so that the person can go in and reset and see if they passed or not and verified, failed. All of this is back in if the specialist wants to be onboarded. Because not only do we have a specialist onboarding, we also have agencies that are onboarded. We can create the agency, you can assign a specialist to that particular agency that gets created as well. And actually, this actually failed, so I have to fix that. And you can see the products as well, so you can manage the products. I can manage the products for the client. I can edit the images that are needed. All of this actually took quite a bit of time, but I'm going to tell you one thing that actually helped me. I built my own tools initially that helped me understand what was happening underneath, because a lot of times we don't necessarily know what's going on within the application. And for new people that are trying to build in the application, you want to see what's happening. You want to understand what's going on. And instead of just depending on another location or going to Supabase or something like that to see what the logs are, it's just easier to see it inside of here and run the diagnostics as well. I built the financial portion as well so that there can be payouts to the user engine as well. And then system configuration. Now, this is important. If you're building an application, you're trying to configure things, it's probably a good idea to build something like this so you can actually put in your different configurations if you're using API calls or things like that. The other thing is I have a full client management system where I can manage all of the users as well. And I can change their particular relationship to the application by changing their roles. and things like that. All of this is in a refinement stage and it's being tested, but it's to roll out things. But I was seeing something online where you were saying to using different tools and so forth. Keep in mind, you want to run through iteration. You want to keep going through. If you fix something, you want to say, okay, I fixed it. I have it there. I locked down a particular feature. Use all the things that are available to you so that you can actually really build something, because an application of this type requires at least some ability to understand what's going on, but to keep track of your feature sets and things like that. Always run your audits of the independent thing that you're applying, and reference your libraries as well to kind of help you move along and see what's actually happening. So if you have to refactor anything, it keeps those things in mind. So just wanted to share it quickly. I have so many other projects. I really wanted to show that one because it's pretty extensive. It's the biggest one that I have on the application right now. So
we've got a comment saying, well done, great insight, application and building. Thanks for sharing. So thanks. We've also got another one from Erica. Hell yeah, helping the ladies out. So good on you.
Absolutely. Because again, when you're trying to build an application, especially these days, postpartum and women's health and things like that, they really don't have the community of technology people to really support that community. And I wanted to make sure that I used to be a CIO, CTO here or there. And I'm a full stack developer, but this is giving everything needed, which is why the application has so much sophistication. I also built an actual game, which is called Stroll. It's so that they can gain points, and in those points, they actually can get points off of the checkout process. So all of this is during in its unit testing and its final stages of MVP. But just know it takes you some time. Just be patient. I'm telling you, all new users, be patient. Follow some of the examples provided. But it's one of those things you got to learn. You got to walk through it. You'll learn how to optimize your topic. You'll learn what's going on. Use other AI systems, advise if you need to. But just stay in plan. I will tell you that. Stay in plan so you can actually understand and audit what's there. This will help you evaluate and use minimum tokens so that if you're running through it, you get to a point where you're running in all those errors. It's important for you to chat it. Just stay in plan until you get it right. Follow the prompts. And if there's anything that you can't get past, I would say take it to another engine to get a second opinion of what's happening, because sometimes the errors are literally in just the translation of what you're trying to accomplish and build. And most new people who don't have development skills, you need that. Let something help you translate what you're trying to think through so that you can refine and refactor it and put it in the proper framework. So just wanted to provide that as well.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing, Kevin.
Of course, I'd love to share. I'll be back on again. I would like to continue to share as well. So I have so much comments on what people are saying, but I'm like, I'm not the one running the forum, so I can't answer all of these questions, but I would love to join more to help with this, because the normal person using this, spending their money each month on trying to get the best out of it. It puts in your hand. I've managed teams of 50 to 60 people, and I'm able to do with what they were able to do in literally months, in a month period of time, add features on and do so much without them. And I can ship the project to others to refactor other components. So keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Be patient with yourself.
Yes.
Kevin.
With that being said, with Kevin wanting to help out the community, improving, making sure that we're prompting most efficiently, what I'd like to make you all aware of is we're working on this workshops. You can go to it directly at workshops.bolt.host. And basically the purpose of this is it shows all the past workshops, but here we're also going to add a area where you can share your favorite prompts and what's worked well with you, and we'll make it more of a community tool. That's coming. What I would also like to show you guys is I basically took a screenshot of those failed tests. I put them back into the agent. I ran the test again, and here we can see the 3 tests pass, or 53 tests have passed over 3 different test files. We did get it working a little bit back and forth with the agent. But now if we were to prompt it, say something like, change something in the front end that purposely breaks one of these tests, what we can do is the front end will still be working, and then we can come into the testing, run the test, and we'll show these tests have failed. And that's just a good thing to do before you're publishing your site, making sure that all your tests work. Great. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. I can see Erica.
I have a question really quick. This was earlier on in the chat, and we had someone request the PRD that you shared to start this demo. If there's a place that you can share that publicly for these viewers, that would be great.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah. What we'll do is let's jump back over into this resource site. So basically, if you, as I said before, what I'll do is actually, I think we've got a banner for it, which I'll show you. Here we go. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this workshops.bolt.host. The site is under a little bit of progress at the moment. As soon as I publish it at some point, either today or tomorrow, it's already live now. There's a few more things that are coming. We've adjusted the layout, a few things like that. What we'll do is in the past workshops, you'll be able to see, you can view the workshop PowerPoint. And then also what we'll do, that's a really good point. If you want to see that PRD, I'll add another button in here, which basically links to that PRD. So be patient, probably by the end of today or at some point tomorrow. If you go back and you check on workshops.bolt.host, then you'll be able to find the PRD from today's workshop. With that, thanks again so much, everybody. I really hope you've enjoyed the workshop. I hope you've been able to get something out of it. We've done a variety of different things today. We've looked over creating your initial prompt with these business goals and requirements. We've looked at Shadcn, importing our custom MCP, and looking over unit tests, even with image generation as well, and some refactoring. So hope you found it useful. As always, let's give a big thank you to Erica for joining us, being so active in the comments. Thank you, Erica. Really appreciate you being here. You're always the perfect person to help out. So it's great having you on the calls. And if you're finding these workshops helpful, your reviews on Loom always help us out. They make sure that we're allocating the right resources to building these workshops. If you find them useful, then please let us know in the Loom. We always appreciate your reviews. With that, thanks again, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Good luck with all your projects. Always feel free to send your projects to us when you're close to launch. Sometimes we're able to help you out on the marketing side of things. And again, we'll have another workshop next Thursday, and I hope to see you all then. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you. Bye.